The air in Probate Court, Department 9, smelled of stale coffee, dust and cheap anxiety. It was the smell of endings. I was Judge Gideon Hayes. For 40 years, I sat on the bench of the United States District Court for the Southern District. I was a Reagan appointee, a fact that always amused my critics, as I was one of the few black men nominated that term. I was the judge who stared down the leadership of the Hermanos Verdes cartel and didn't blink. I was the judge who presided over the Intech versus GlobalData patent case, a $20 billion litigation that hinged on my understanding of source code. I had been threatened by cartels, investigated by Congress, and stalked by extremists. I carried the weight of the robe, and now I was respondent, case number 2025 PR 0441. Mr. Hayes, my son S. lawyer said, his voice dripping with synthetic pity, can you tell the court where you were last Tuesday? I looked at him. A kid named Simmons, barely 30, wearing a suit that cost more than my first car. I was at my home, Mr. Simmons, I said. My voice, though no longer amplified by a courtroom microphone, was still a federal instrument. It did not tremble. And were you, he said, checking his notes, experiencing an episode? My client, your son, Mr. Marcus Hayes, has testified that you were erratic, that you were violent, that you threatened him. I looked at my son. Marcus sat at the petitioner S table, his head bowed, performing his role as the anguished child. He was 45, worked in private equity, which meant he lost other people S money, and was drowning in debt. I knew this because, foolishly, he had tried to leverage my name for a loan. I had refused. And that was when my cognitive decline began. No, Mr. Simmons, I said. I was not violent. I was loud. I was telling my son that I would not co-sign a $1.5 million bridge loan for his latest catastrophic opportunity in beachfront real estate. So you admit you were yelling? Simmons pounced. I admit I was emphatic, I said. Your Honor, Simmons said, turning to the probate judge, a tired, overwhelmed woman named Chen, this is the core of it. Judge Hayes is paranoid. He is suffering from delusions. He is aggressive. My client, his own son, fears for his safety. He fears for his father's safety. Marcus on cue dabbed his eye. The performance was nauseating. This was a judicial hit, a coup. It started a month ago. The phone calls from Marcus, full of sudden, cloying concern. Dad, are you eating enough? Dad, you seem confused. I told you that last week. Dad, I'm worried about you in that big house, the house the cartel knows about. He was seeding the narrative. He was building his case. He had hired a specialist, a doctor. Evelyn Reed, a geriatric psychiatrist who made her living testifying. She was a gun for hire, and her fee was $1,500 an hour. Paid for, I noted, by a new credit card Marcus had opened. Dr. Reed visited my home under the guise of just a chat. Judge, she said, her smile as bright and hard as porcelain. Marcus tells me you are having memory issues. My memory is fine, I said. I can recall the docket number of the first case I tried in 1985. Can you? Her smile faltered. Her report, however, did not. I read it this morning, given to me by the court-appointed guardian ad litem, who clearly believed I was senile. Patient exhibits marked paranoia, referencing cartels and threats. Patient is grandiose, fixated on his former professional title. He is a danger to himself and, tragically, to his own substantial estate. My paranoia was a fact. I was the sentencing judge for U.S. v. Salazar. I sent 4 cartel lieutenants to ADX Florence for life. The threats were so credible that the U.S. Marshals Service had maintained a protection detail on me for 10 years. My fixation on my title was a habit, and my substantial estate, $8.9 million in managed funds, plus the $4 million brownstone, was the motive. Mr. Hayes, Judge Chen said, her voice tired, I have the testimony of your son. I have the declaration of Dr. Reed. They both state you are a risk, that you are unwell, They are lying, Your Honor, and I said simply. He is in denial. Marcus burst out, his performance of grief cracking. He is, last week, he threw a book at me. He said, the walls were listening. I stared at him. This was new, a complete fabrication. He was committing perjury, openly, brazenly. He threw a copy of the Federalist Papers, Marcus said, his voice breaking. Your Honor, Simmons said, we are asking for a full conservatorship. My client is the only man who can protect the estate and protect the man. I looked at the judge. She was buying it. Why wouldn't she? She had 2 credible witnesses and 1 confused, violent old man. I had spent my entire life as a bulwark of the system. I believed in its processes. I believed in the adversarial nature of truth. And now I was being crushed by it. The system was being used like a blunt instrument to beat me to death. My court-appointed lawyer, a young woman who looked terrified, whispered, We can ask for an independent evaluation. It would take months, I whispered back. By then, the estate will be gone. I'm sorry, Judge Hayes, Judge Chen said, but based on the evidence presented, the declarations, the testimony, I have no choice but to grant a temporary emergency conservatorship. Marcus Hayes is appointed conservator of the person and the estate. The gavel fell. It wasn't a thud. It was a click, the sound of a lock. Marcus, his face a mask of sorrow, walked over. He put his hand on my shoulder. It is for the best, Dad, he whispered. We'll take care of everything. I looked at his hand, the hand of a perjurer, the hand of a thief. You have no idea, I said, my voice low, what you have just done. He took it as a threat. A sign of my aggressiveness. He smiled, a small, tight smile of victory. The driver is waiting, Dad. We're moving you to a new place, a nice place. You will be safe. They drove me from my brownstone, the one I had lived in for 30 years, to a luxury senior living facility in Westchester. It was a prison. My phone was taken. For your own rest, Dad. My checkbooks. To simplify the bills. My laptop. Dr. Reed says the blue light is bad for your paranoia. I was isolated. I was, in the eyes of the state of New York, legally dead. Marcus and his team had been thorough. They had anticipated a legal fight. They had the doctor. They had the false testimony. They had built a perfect case, but Marcus, in his arrogance, had forgotten one crucial fundamental detail. He had lied about my paranoia. He had used my real history, the cartel case, the threats, as proof of my delusions. He had forgotten that when a U.S. federal judge has credible death threats, the U.S. Marshals Service does not just forget about him. He had told the court I screamed that the walls were listening. He was right. They were, and they had been without interruption for 25 years. The luxury facility was a beige hell. It was all soft edges, hushed carpets, and the cloying smell of overcooked vegetables and industrial bleach. It was a place designed to warehouse the inconvenient. My room had a bed, a chair, and a window that didn't open more than 3 inches. A helper, a large man named Frank, would bring my meals and watch me eat. How are we feeling today, Judge? He'd ask, his eyes never leaving his phone. I'm feeling incapacitated, and I'd say. He'd chuckle. That is a good one, Judge. For a week, I did nothing. I observed. I was a prisoner, and a prisoner's first job is to learn the terrain. I learned the guards' schedules. I learned who was lazy, Frank, and who was a true believer, the head nurse. I was cut off, no phone, no internet. My mail was, I was assured, being helpfully forwarded to Marcus. My son, in his haste, had built his case on the U.S. vs. Salazar trial. He had presented my decades-old, very real security concerns as a new, senile paranoia. It was a brilliant legal argument if you were an idiot. He had based his entire case on a foundation of sand. The Salazar case was brutal. 18 months. The cartel was professional and they were violent. After I delivered the sentences, 4 life terms, no parole, the threats were so specific that the U.S. Marshals Service implemented Protocol 12. Most people think judicial protection is a bodyguard. It is not. it as information. Protocol 12 meant a full 24/7 security installation in my home, not just alarms. It was a networked system of audio surveillance, silent alarms, and pressure-sensitive flooring, all feeding directly to a secure server at the Marshal's New York field office. It was 90s technology, hardwired and impossible to hack from the outside, but it was reliable. When I retired, the active bodyguard detail was removed, but the in-house system? The Marshals never dismantle a secure installation. It's too expensive, and the files on the Salazar family were still active. My brownstone wasn't just a house. It was a secure federal facility. And my son Marcus had just committed perjury inside of it. He had testified under oath that I had thrown a book and screamed. He had, I assumed, told the same lies to Dr. Reed in my library. He was a fool. I had no phone. I had no allies. But I had a memory, and I had a code. The helper, Frank, was my weak link. He was bored, and he loved to gamble. I could hear him listening to the horse races on his radio app. "Frank," I said one afternoon as he collected my tray. "Yeah, Judge? In my day, I was a betting man," I said. He perked up. "Oh, yeah? What was your game?" "The horses. Belmont." "No kidding, I am a Belmont man." "I used to know a bookie," one I said, "an old-timer. He had a phrase, Themis S scales weigh all. He said it was for good luck." Frank frowned. "Never heard that one." "Themis? Ah, goddess of justice, I said. He was a classical man. "Huh, weird." He left. It wasn't a phrase for a bookie. It was a duress code. The marshals who ran my detail, we had a system. If I ever needed to signal for help without saying I needed help, I was to use the name Themis. It was an alert word that would trigger an immediate review of the household surveillance. I had just told Frank, who was, without a doubt, being monitored by Marcus ESE security. That his phone was likely being checked. The name Frank and the word Themis would, I hoped, be linked. Or Frank would just tell Marcus, "The old man is spouting weird Greek stuff." It was a risk. I needed a more direct line. My court-appointed lawyer, the terrified young woman. Her name was Alicia Patel. She was new, she was overwhelmed, and she was my only legal link to the outside world. I was allowed a weekly check-in call with her, monitored by Frank. "How are you, Judge Hayes?" she asked, her voice tinny over the speakerphone. "I am well cared for, Ms. Patel," I said, as Frank buffed his nails. "Is there anything I can do?" "Yes," I said. I am concerned about my house, the brownstone. I believe I left a draft running in my old chambers, room 1204. Frank didn't even look up. Patel was confused. "A draft, Judge?" "Yes, a cold draft. It is an old system. It is probably, listening to this, it is a federal matter. Room 1204, can you just check on it for my peace of mind?" "Room 1204, your chambers?" "Yes, just tell them. Judge Hayes is worried about the draft. They will understand. Old friends." There was a silence. I will try, Judge." "Thank you, Miss Patel. You're a fine lawyer." I hung up. Room 1204 was not my old chamber number. It was the call sign for the U.S. Marshall's Judicial Protection Unit at the Southern District. Worried about the draft was the soft inquiry code. Now I had to wait. 3 days later, I had a visitor. It was an Alicia Patel. It was a man in a crisp, dark suit. He was 6'4", built like a vending machine, and had an aura of quiet, unassailable authority. He walked into my room, and Frank, who had been slouched in the chair, stood up straight. The man flashed a badge. "Deputy Marshal John Riley. I'm here to see my uncle." Frank looked confused. "He doesn't have a nephew on the list." Riley's smile didn't reach his eyes. "He does now. Give us the room." It wasn't a request. Frank, for the first time, looked intimidated. He left. Riley closed the door. He turned to me. "Judge Hayes," he said, his voice a low rumble. "We got 2 calls. One about Themis," which lit up a low priority flag. and one from a very confused lawyer about a draft sent at room 1204. That lit up a high-priority flag. "Riley," I said, "it is good to see you. You were a rookie when they put in the system." "You remember?" he smiled. "Yes, sir. We pulled the tapes." "The tapes?" "From the house. The full audio from the hardwired system. As per protocol, a Themis alert means we review the last 48 hours. A 1204 alert means we review everything." He pulled a small encrypted hard drive from his pocket. "We heard it all, Judge." My heart, which I had kept steady for 2 weeks, began to pound. "You heard?" "We heard Dr. Reed's evaluation," Riley said, his jaw tight. "We heard her asking you leading questions. We heard you calm as a cucumber correcting her. We also heard," he continued, "your son, Marcus, talking to his wife. The night before the evaluation. And—" Riley pulled out a small, nondescript burner phone. "It is better if you listen, Judge." He pressed a button. The audio was crystal clear. It was the old, high-fidelity system. Marcus, voice. "I don't care. You just need to get her to say he's paranoid. Use the Salazar case. Tell her he thinks the cartel is coming. She's a hack. She'll put it in the report." Sarah, voice, his wife. "And the hearing. What about you testifying? What if he is coherent that day?" Marcus, voice. "He will be. That is the point. I am going to lie. I am going to say he threw a book at me. I am going to say he is violent. Who are they going to believe? Me, the loving son, or the crazy, paranoid old man? This is a slam dunk. In a month, we'll be selling the house." The recording stopped. I sat on the edge of the beige bed. I had presided over murder trials. I had heard confessions. I had never felt this. Her cold, hollow, surgical rage. "He committed perjury," I said. It was a statement of fact. "In a federal-level secure facility, Judge," Riley corrected. "He admitted conspiracy to commit perjury within earshot of a federal surveillance system. That complicates his life. And Dr. Reed's, and the testimony, the throne book. A complete fabrication," Riley said. "We have the audio of that entire encounter. You were, as you said, emphatic. You told him he was a financial disgrace and a moral disappointment. You did not, however, throw a book." He put the hard drive on the table. This is the official federal file. It is evidence." "They want to let it in," I said, my mind racing. "A probate judge, a temporary hearing. The chain of custody, the fruit of the poisonous tree argument. They'll say I recorded it." "No, sir," Riley said. "You didn't record it. The United States Marshal Service recorded it as part of an active judicial protection protocol. The chain of custody is my signature. The warrant, sir, you were the warrant. The Protocol 12 agreement you signed in 1B. 8 C2A is a standing consent. It's ironclad." He stood up. "Judge, you are not incapacitated. You are, however, in a bit of a jam." "And how do I get out of it, Marshal?" "Well, sir, I am not a lawyer, but my boss is, and he hates when people mess with his protectees. He hates it even more when they lie about it in court." Riley handed me the burner phone. "This is for you. It has one number in it. It has not for Ms. Patel." "Who is it?" "It has the number for David Barone." My breath caught. David Barone, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, my former law clerk. "I see," I said. "Judge," Riley said, his hand on the door, "the U.S. Attorney's office takes perjury very seriously, especially perjury that targets a federal judge. And, as a personal matter, we really like our secure facility back." The door closed. I looked at the burner phone. I looked at the encrypted hard drive. Marcus had built his case. He had witnesses. He had a doctor. I had the U.S. Attorney, and I had the truth. This was no longer a probate matter. This was a federal case. The game had changed. Marcus was playing checkers in a probate court. I was about to move a queen on a federal board. My first call was to David Barone. "Judge Hayes, David's voice came through, sharp and stressed. I got a heads up from the marshals. I am, to put it mildly, appalled. This is not just a family dispute. David, I said, it is good to hear your voice. I am, as you know, incapacitated. Bullshit, he snapped, the old aggressive AUSA I remembered. Sir, I am looking at the audio transcripts. This isn't just perjury. This is conspiracy to commit wire fraud. He has used your social security number to open credit lines. He is actively looting. I am aware, I said. But David, I have a problem. You are the sword of Damocles. You are the criminal case. I am still a prisoner in a beige room. I need a scalpel. I need a civil attorney who can get me into that courtroom. You want to wait? Judge, I can have an FBI agent at your son's door in an hour. No, I said. This is not how it ends. He humiliated me in that room. He used the system against me. I will use the system to correct it. I want him back in that probate court. I want Judge Chen to undo what she did. There was a long silence. David Barone, the prosecutor, was at war with David Barone, my old clerk. Poetic justice, he finally said. I get it. Okay, you need a shark. You need someone who is not afraid of a probate judge, a crooked doctor, or a federal case. Do you have a name? I have the name, David said. She is expensive, she is ruthless. And she used to be my top appellate lawyer. Her name is Nina Alvarez. She'll be at your facility in 1 hour. The marshals will convince of the staff to let her in. Thank you, David. Dante thanked me, Judge, he said. Just give her the hard drive and let her work. I'll hold my sword until you tell me to drop it. Nina Alvarez was a force of nature. She didn't walk into the room, she invaded it. She was 5'2", wearing a bright red suit, and she radiated an energy that could power a small city. Frank, the helper, practically recoiled. I am Nina Alvarez, she said to him, not looking at him. I am Judge Hayes' new counsel. Here is my letter of engagement. She dropped it on his chest. We will be in here. Do not listen. Do not interrupt. If you do, I will have you sanctioned, fired, and disbarred in that order. Do you understand? Frank just nodded and fled. She closed the door. Judge Hayes, she said, her tone shifting to one of deep respect. David Barone sends his regards. He said you have the package. I handed her the hard drive. It is the full audio, Marshal Riley. She took it. Good. I've already read the transcripts. This is Christmas coming early. They want to let it in, Ms. Alvarez, and I cautioned. The probate judge, she's overwhelmed. She'll see this as a procedural nightmare. Nina smiled. It was a terrifying, beautiful smile. Judge, she said, you rethinking like a judge. You rethinking about admissibility, precedent, and fairness. I am a litigator. I am thinking about leverage. She sat down. We are not going to play the tape, not at first. What is the plan? The plan is a masterpiece of procedural violence, as she said. Step 1. We file an emergency motion to vacate the temporary conservatorship. We file it this afternoon. The grounds? The grounds are new evidence, but we will be beautifully vague. Step 2. We subpoena Dr. Evelyn Reed. We subpoena your son, Marcus. We subpoena them for a deposition in aid of the motion to take place tomorrow morning, at my office. They want to come, I said. Their lawyer will move to quash. Of course they will, as she laughed. And when they do, we file a motion to compel, and we attach as Exhibit A a certified transcript of the hard drive. Not the audio, just the words. I saw it. The transcripts. Yes. We will serve a copy to their lawyer, Mr. Simmons. We will serve a copy to Judge Chen Clark. And we will serve a courtesy copy to the New York State Medical Board regarding Dr. Reed's safe evaluation techniques. Choice that one, I said, is a tactical nuke. It is just the appetizer, Nina said, because they will fight. Simmons will claim the transcript is fake or taken out of context. He will demand to hear the original audio, and that is when we set the trap. Go on. He will file a motion to disqualify the evidence. And we will agree with him. We will file a response that says, "You are correct. A sterile transcript cannot capture the full context, the tone, the conspiratorial natures of the conversation. Therefore, we insist that the full unredacted audio must be played in open court before Judge Chen." I leaned back. It was beautiful. She was forcing them to demand the evidence that would destroy them. She was using their own arrogance as the lever. "Ms. Alvarez," I said, "you are a shark." "You real legend, Judge," she said. "I am just happy to be in the same water. Now let us get you out of this beige prison." The next 48 hours were a blur of legal warfare. Nina S. filings hit the court system like a cluster bomb. Mr. Simmons, Marcus S. lawyer, was, as predicted, thrown into chaos. I was still in the facility, but I had my burner phone. Nina gave me a play-by-play. "Simmons is panicked," she said, her voice giddy. "He got the transcript. He called me, screaming, 'This is illegal. This is a violation. This is entrapment.'" "And what did you say?" I said, "Mr. Simmons, your client committed perjury on a federal wiretap. My only question is whether we settle this in probate court, or if my colleague, Mr. Barone, settles it in a criminal court. Your choice." He hung up. The trap was set. Simmons knew the transcript was damning, but he was a litigator. He couldn't just admit it. He had to fight. He filed the motion to strike evidence and for sanctions. It was desperate. The alleged transcript is a fabrication. It is fruit of the poisonous tree. It is an illegal recording. And just as Nina predicted, he ended with, "Petitioner demands a full evidentiary hearing on the source and authenticity of this so-called evidence, including the original audio if it even exists." He had walked blind and arrogant right into the snare. Nina S. response was filed an hour later. Response to motion to strike. Respondent agrees. We consent to Petitioner S. demand for a full evidentiary hearing. We look forward to playing the original audio in open court under the supervision of the U.S. Marshals Service, who will be present to verify the chain of custody. Judge Chen, seeing U.S. Marshals Service scandal perjury had in the same filing, had no choice. She set the hearing. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. The night before the hearing, a complication. A real one. The burner phone rang. It was Marshal Riley. "Judge Army," he said, and his voice was not happy. "We have a problem." "What is it, Riley?" "Your son, Marcus. He's not stupid. He is just greedy. He's been trying to access your main brokerage account all week, the one worth $8 million. "I know. Well, it was locked. He couldn't get in, but his lawyer, Simmons, must have told him what S in those transcripts. And Marcus is no longer at his home or his office. His wife says he went for a drive. His cell phone is currently pinging at JFK International." My blood ran cold. "He's running," I whispered. "He's running," Riley confirmed. "And he's not just running. He successfully initiated a wire transfer from a different account. An old college fund account you set up for him. He was still a signatory. He is pulling out $150,000 in cash. He was liquid, and he was bolting. If he's not at that hearing tomorrow," I said, "if he's a fugitive." "The whole thing falls apart," Riley finished. "Chen will dismiss. The U.S. Attorney S office will be stuck chasing a ghost. And you will still be in that beige room, stuck in a legal limbo while we try to extradite him. It could take years." "Where is he?" "At JFK." "He is at the American Express Centurion Lounge, Terminal 4, Riley said. "He just booked a one-way ticket to Dubai. The flight leaves in 90 minutes. Dubai. Non-extradition, he was smart." "Riley," I said, you can to stop him, can you? You don't to have a warrant." "I don't to have a criminal warrant," Riley said, a strange new tone in his voice. "And Barone can't get one from a magistrate at this hour just for perjury. It is not imminent danger. So he is gone." "I said," Riley repeated, "that I don't have a criminal warrant, but I do have this." I heard him typing. "This, say, is the original Protocol 12 order, the one you signed in 199B. It gives the Marshal's Service broad authority to detain and question any individual, any who is deemed a proximate threat to a sitting or retired federal protectee. A proximate threat, I said, the words tasting like copper. Lying about you in court, to steal your money, and then fleeing the country to avoid facing the federal agents you called. I'd say that as a damn proximate threat, Judge. You were going to arrest him. Oh no, Riley said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. I am not going to arrest him. I am just going to detain him as a material witness for questioning related to a breach of a federal security protocol. Where will you question him? Well, Riley said, it is 10 p.m. The field office is closed. I guess I'll just have to keep him somewhere safe, somewhere secure. He'll be on ice. Riley, what about the hearing? 10 a.m. I'll make sure, Riley said, that he is at the courthouse. He wanted to be in a suit, but he'll be there. Don't you worry, Judge. And Riley, one more thing. Sir? Dr. Evelyn Reed, I said. She is the other half of this. Ah, Riley said. Yes, Ms. Alvarez's courtesy copy to the medical board has agitated her. She will definitely be in court, with her own high-priced lawyer, to try and save her medical license. So all the players, I said, will be on the board. 10 a.m., Judge, Riley said. It is going to be a show. The probate courtroom was a different place. The air was no longer stale. It was electric. It was packed. Nina, in a suit the color of Arctic ice, had arranged for me to be brought in before anyone else. I was not in the respondent S chair. I was sitting at the counsel table with her. Judge Chen was on the bench. She looked awake. She looked terrified. The gallery was full. David Barone, the U.S. attorney, was in the back row, observing. 2 of my old colleagues from the bench were there, and half the local legal press who had gotten an anonymous tips about a U.S. Marshal testifying in probate court. Dr. Evelyn Reed was there, flanked by a lawyer who looked like a professional mourner. She was visibly pale, her porcelain smile shattered. Where, Judge Chen asked, her voice tight, is the petitioner? Mr. Marcus Hayes. We are waiting on him, Your Honor, Simmons said. He was sweating. He had clearly been up all night wondering where his client was. He was not at his home, Simmons stammered. I move for a continuance. Motion denied, Judge Chen snapped. She had seen the U.S. attorney in the back. Her career was flashing before her eyes. The courtroom doors opened. Marshal John Riley walked in. Mr. Marcus Hayes, Riley boomed, is present and in federal custody. He was followed by 2 other marshals who were escorting Marcus. He was not in a suit. He was in the same clothes he'd been wearing at the airport, rumpled, terrified. He was in handcuffs. Handcuffs? Simmons shrieked. Your Honor, what is this? So this, Riley said, is a material witness, detained overnight for questioning regarding a threat to a federal protectee. We convinced him to attend. The marshals sat Marcus at his table. They removed the cuffs. Marcus just stared at his hands, trembling. He looked at me, his eyes wide with pure, undiluted terror. This court, Judge Chen said, is in session. We are here on Petitioner S. motion to strike. Mr. Simmons. Simmons, trying to regain his footing, stood. Your Honor, this evidence, this transcript, it is illegal. It was recorded without my client's consent. It is a violation of... A violation of what, Counselor? Nina Alvarez said, rising. Of his privacy. His privacy, Nina said, while he was in a secure federal facility, conspiring to commit perjury. Is that the privacy you are referring to? Or are you referring to his other acts? I do not know what you Shall the $1.5 million bridge loan, Nina said, which he applied for using a forged power of attorney from his father, or the $150,000 he wired to an offshore account last night in preparation for his trip to Dubai. Simmons sat down. He was done. Marcus was staring slack-jawed at Nina. Mr. Simmons, Judge Chen said, Your own motion demanded to hear the audio. Are you withdrawing that demand? Simmons was in a box. If he withdrew, he was admitting the transcript was true. If he didn't withdraw, the tape would be played. Your Honor? We'll take that as a no, Nina said. Your Honor, we are prepared to play the audio. Marshal Riley has the original encrypted hard drive and is here to testify to the chain of custody. Riley stepped forward, holding the small drive. No! It was Marcus. He screamed it. No! Don T, play it! Everyone froze. Please, he begged, looking at Judge Chen, then at me. Don T, play it. Mr. Hayes, Judge Chen said, Are you withdrawing your petition? He looked at Simmons. He looked at me. He looked at Marshal Riley. He looked at the U.S. attorney in the back row. His entire life, his entire plan was evaporating. Mr. Hayes, Nina said, her voice soft and deadly, are you under oath admitting that the contents of the transcript are true, that you conspired to commit perjury, that you lied to this court? He was weeping, a 45-year-old man weeping at the counsel table. Yes, he whispered, yes, it is true, all of it. The courtroom was silent. The reporters were typing. Dr. Reed, 2 tables over, made a small sound and fainted, her lawyer catching her before she hit the floor. Well, Judge Chen said, that simplifies things. Nina Alvarez stood. Your Honor, she said, in light of the petitioner Xina's confession, we have a few requests. 1, we demand the immediate permanent vacating of the conservatorship, with prejudice. Granted, said Judge Chen. 2, we demand an immediate court order, freezing all assets of Mr. Marcus Hayes, pending a civil trial for fraud, conversion, and the return of the $150,000 he attempted to steal. Granted. 3, we ask for a permanent restraining order, barring Mr. Hayes from ever contacting, approaching, or speaking to his father, Judge Gideon Hayes, again. Granted. And finally, Nina said, we request that this court release Mr. Marcus Hayes from its custody and hand him over. Hand him over? Simmons squeaked. Nina looked at the back row. To the U.S. Attorney S. office for further questioning. David Barone stood up. The U.S. Attorney E.S. office, he announced, will be charging Mr. Marcus Hayes with 3 counts of wire fraud and 1 count of perjury, and we will be investigating Dr. Evelyn Reed, S. medical license. The marshals picked Marcus up. He was no longer a petitioner, he was a defendant. As they led him out, he looked at me. His face was a mask of confusion, rage, and self-pity. Dad, he cried, how did you tricked me. I stood for the first time. I walked to the edge of the counsel table. I looked at my son, the man who had tried to bury me. No, Marcus, I said. My voice was quiet, but the entire silent courtroom heard it. You didn't lie to me. You lied to the court. You lied on a federal wiretap. You forgot the first rule of the law, son. What? He whispered. The system you tried to use, the one I served for 40 years, it always listens. And in the end, it always balances the scales. He had no answer. The doors of the courtroom closed. I was Judge Gideon Hayes, and I was once again free.